Hi, my name is Bill Meyer. This is my wife Terry, and we've been married 26 years, going on 27. And I am here to tell you about some of her needs that I supposedly am supposed to fill. And I'm just going to tell you a little story about one that when we had our kids, we got two girls. We basically, when she was doing the stay-at-home mom thing for the first month or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 3 months. One of the needs that I helped her with was I would always get up in the middle of the night, feed the girls, do the changing of the pants things and all that kind of stuff. But just to let her sleep in, because I know she was pretty worn out from a pretty long pregnancy. That's one of the needs that I felt that she needed, what she did need, and I know she appreciated that.
And sometimes I would even actually pretend that I was very, very in a deep sleep, so that, but he didn't question it at all. He would just get up like a trooper and take care of the girls, and it was amazing, it really was. And he was such a blessing at that time, and I don't know what I would have done without him.
She took advantage of me, she did. Pretending with the whole sleep thing. Yeah, that's kind of how we stay together. Of course, we had our fights. Everybody does, but you expect to have fights, but you also expect to say you're sorry and make up and keep on going, because for one, when I got married, I made a promise to God, and that's the way I'm going to keep it. There's going to be till death do us part.
So he didn't know I was going to talk about this, but as soon as we got the email asking if we would do this, I instantly thought of how Bill met my needs, and he probably never even knew it. But we go back to when we first met, and we were probably on our second or third date, and he loves Dairy Queen. So we were downtown. He looked at me. He's like, I gotta get a Dairy Queen, a DQ. So we pulled in, and he asked me if I wanted anything, and I said no, thank you. He went. It was kind of like it wasn't a sit down but you went up to the window, and it was all outside. You parked outside, and you ate outside. And he went up to the window, and he ordered 2 hot dogs. I don't even think you got an ice cream cone, actually. But anyway, he got back in his truck, and as we were pulling out, he was unwrapping the hot dog, and he was ready to just like dive into it. And he looked, and he saw there was a man standing in front of the Dairy Queen, and he looked to be homeless. Bill stopped the truck right there and then, just as we were pulling out. He stopped right there and then, got out and gave him his other hot dog that he didn't even open up yet. And at that point, I was just like, he just touched my heart so deep, because I knew that this is the kind of man that I wanted to be with forever. So he met my needs, and he didn't even realize it at that time, just at that moment. So it was just a tender moment, and I will never forget it as long as I live. So.
Hey, friends, we're going to look at a very, very, very challenging and somewhat overwhelming topic today. I want to find an answer to the age-old question, what does a woman really want? It's a 7-hour message, and that only gets us halfway through. One of the greatest authoritative thinkers of the 20th century was Sigmund Freud, and even this brilliant man was quoted as saying the following. He said, "Despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, I have not yet been able to answer the great question, what does a woman want?" Sigmund Freud couldn't figure it out, and my guess, men, we probably can't figure it out either. However, God has it all figured out, and men, He has done us a huge favor, and He tells us what a woman wants in His Word. So men, look, if you want your marriage to be alive, if you want it to thrive, if you want your marriage to be fresh, fun, and fulfilling, then you're going to want to take great notes today. I already see some women handing their husband a pen. That's fantastic. So pass the pen to him if you need to. Today we're going to talk about how you can fulfill your wife's deepest needs. So let's dive right in. How can I fulfill my wife's deepest needs? Number one, show affection. Now, men, the first step in fulfilling your wife's deepest needs is you have to constantly show affection. And men, I'm going to say this right up front. This might be the only thing you write down today, and make sure you're ready. There is a huge difference between sex and affection. Okay? Make sure you understand that. For a man, and this is hard for us men, but for a man, we think affection happens 2 or 3 minutes before having sex. Right? For a woman, affection happens all throughout the day, probably 23 hours before having intercourse, right? So look, men, if you want to have a good sex life with your wife, then you actually need to become a pro at showing your wife affection throughout the day. You need to become an expert at showing your wife how much you love her. And she needs to understand that affection and sex, that those are different things. Men, look, when you show your wife affection, you're essentially telling her that you care for her, that you will protect her, that you're concerned for her, that you approve of her, and that you're proud of her. That's true affection. Men, when you show your wife true biblical affection, one of her deepest needs will absolutely be met. Ephesians 5:28. That is how husbands should treat their wives, loving them as parts of themselves. For since a man and his wife are now one, a man is really doing himself a favor and loving himself when he loves his wife. Now look, if you were here last week, you understand this goes all the way back to what we talked about last week. Do you remember God's marriage equation for all married couples? Do you remember this? It's 1 + 1 = 1. That's right. This means that your wife's needs, men, they have to be important to you. This means you have to strive to love your wife even the way that you love yourself. And you need to do everything you can to show her the affection that she needs. Colossians 3:19. Husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly. Now, men, make sure you see that. Make sure what it actually says there. It doesn't say love your wife 10 minutes before sexual intercourse. It doesn't say show your wife love when it's convenient to you. God says to love your wife at all times. Love your wife at all times, and don't treat her harshly. Now look, I wonder why God would say that. Well, because God created your wife. He knows your wife. And he understands that your wife needs affection. Your wife needs kind words. Your wife needs to feel cherished and loved and cared for. So men, we have to learn how to be affectionate. We have to learn how to show our wife the affection that she needs. And look, men, here's the thing. Track with me here. This is some man talk for a second, all right? Men, if you will learn this, and if you will learn it well, you ready? One of your greatest needs will be met. And you're going to be a lot less grumpy. Okay? Now look, I debated whether to say this or not, but hey, this is where it should be talked about in the church. Guys, make sure you remember this. If you want the oven to be hot at night, you need to light the pilot in the morning. Okay? Now I'm serious. Look, your wife deserves affection. Okay? The more love, affection, care, and even words of affirmation that you can give to your wife throughout the day, the more intimate your wife is going to want to be with you. So how can you show your wife the affection she needs? How can you actually show the affection she needs? Ask her. Ask her. She'll be more than happy to tell you. She'll be more than happy to tell you. Just simply ask her, how can I show you the affection that you need? Look, every woman wants affection, but every woman may want that affection in a different way. So men, ask your wife. Ask your wife how you can be more affectionate. Look, for my wife, Kara, she wants me to show her affection in a few ways throughout the day. First, very important to her, she wants me to speak kindly to her. That's very important to my wife, is that I am speaking kindly to her. She also likes it when I hold her hand. She likes it if I play with her hair. But I think her top one is maybe when I just wrap her in a big hug. She loves that. And I try my best, I'm not the best at it, but I try to fulfill these signs of affection in our marriage. And here's the thing I love about my wife, Kara. If there's days or weeks where I'm just really busy, maybe I'm being a little selfish and I'm not thinking about her needs, she's developed these really great nonverbal signs to remind me that affection is needed. For example, if she's in need of affection and needing that big bear hug from me, she'll literally just walk up to me, stand about 6 inches from my face, and she'll just bat her eyes. And that's my cue to stop what I'm doing and just wrap her up in a big bear hug. I love that about her. She's not ashamed to let me know if she needs some affection. Husbands, if you really do want your marriage to last forever, this is something you need to be concerned about. You need to be concerned about your wife's needs. And this first concern for her needs is showing her affection. It's very, very important that you're doing that in your marriage. And then number 2, your wife needs you to communicate often. Okay, let's get real for a minute, men. We are probably not the best at communicating our thoughts and feelings. We're probably not the best at that. But if you truly want a marriage that will last forever, you're going to need to get over that. All right? You're going to need to get over it, and you're going to need to just start communicating more with your wife. Look, did you know it's actually very important to God that you and your spouse are in agreement with one another? You see, it honors God when you work together and when you and your spouse stand united in decisions and directions for your marriage. And look, men, the only way for you to be united in your marriage is to communicate your thoughts and feelings to your spouse. Philippians 2:2. Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. Okay? Look, without strong communication, a husband and wife, here's the reality, a husband and wife will become like two ships passing in the night. You're only going to meet for that brief moment in the day, and then you're going to just continue to sail along without each other. Look, for most married couples, here's, I think, the routine. Most married couples, you wake up in the morning, you rush around to get a shower, you get dressed, you wake up the kids, you get them ready for school, you go to work, you come home tired, you get a quick meal for dinner, you get the kids to basketball practice, you put the kids to sleep, and the very first 2 words you spoke to your spouse the entire day is, good night. That's it. And look, for many couples, this routine, it becomes habit. And before they realize it, they no longer really even know the person that they're sleeping next to every night. Look, for all the married couples here today, please make sure you hear this. You must make time to communicate with each other. It's very important for the success of your marriage. And husbands, let's just do this. Let's be the one that starts initiating this type of communication with our wife. It's one of her deepest needs. So let's initiate more communication in our marriage. Look, your wife is wired to talk. Your wife is wired to communicate. Your wife needs to know what you're thinking, men. Your wife wants to know how you feel. She wants to know how you feel about her. So, men, we need to learn how to use our words a bit more. Communicate with your wife and do it often. Look, God actually tells us a pretty cool result of good communication. Proverbs 13:17. Simple verse. Reliable communication permits progress. If you want a healthy marriage, if you want a successful marriage, if you want your marriage to last, if you want to be together forever, communicate. Communicate often. Find ways, men, to eliminate distractions. Find ways to be in your wife's presence and simply communicate with her. Husbands, when you make time to talk with your wife, it shows her that you value her. It shows her that you care enough about her to give her your attention. Look, when you sit and talk and listen and interact, look at your wife in the eye. It means that you're interested in her day, you're interested in her, and you're absolutely interested in how she feels. Philippians 2:4, it says, don't look out for only your own interests, but take an interest in others too. Husbands, look, the best way, I think this is the best way to apply this to your marriage, is do whatever you can to have a weekly date. And look, that doesn't have to be, something fancy in this big production, right? Now, that's fun to do at times. But having a weekly date doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and spend all this money. I'm not talking necessarily about getting all dressed up and eating at a fancy restaurant. I'm simply talking about making time, husband and wife, to communicate. Look, for Kara and I, we haven't always done this perfectly, but over the years, I think we've gotten better. And to be honest with you, even though it's somewhat unspoken in our marriage, it's not like, hey, every Wednesday's date night. We have several dates a week, actually. You see, we've coordinated it to where our work schedules, we can have lunch at the same time together. And for us, these times of getting lunch, they're not necessarily these big, heartfelt romantic dates. They're simply times for us to connect and communicate with each other. And sometimes we'll eat lunch together 3 or 4 times a week. We absolutely love it. You see, eating lunch with my wife, it actually brings me great joy. And honestly, it doesn't even really matter what we talk about. I just look forward to spending time with her because 1, I know that I'm fulfilling one of her needs, but 2, and this is maybe more important, it makes us a stronger couple where Satan will not have these strongholds over us and our marriage won't have doors open to temptation around us. The more we're together, the more we communicate, our marriage becomes stronger. So men, you can fulfill one of your wife's deepest needs when you put down the remote, put down the paper. Here's a tough one, maybe put off that hunting trip, and you spend more time with the amazing wife that God has given to you. Your wife's deepest needs, show her affection, communicate often. And then men, here's the next tough one, all right? And hey, women, you're not off the hook. We're talking about you next week, all right? All right? Men, as you communicate, I heard one, woo! All right? Men, as you communicate with your wife. Number 3, this is important. Guys, you have to be open and honest. Men, here's the reality. Your wife, she wants to know you. She wants to know what you're thinking. She wants to know how you feel. She wants to know more about the man that she fell in love with. You see, one of your wife's deepest needs is to know you like no one else knows you. And the only way for her to truly know you and understand you is for you to be open and honest with her. Now look, I think for most men, we have this, I know I do, and I'm sure most of us are the same. We have this natural tendency to want to be a provider and protector of our family. We have this desire to be counted on. We want our wife and our children to look at us as being strong and capable and ready to protect our family at all cost. And look, men, I want you to know this. I think that these are very good and manly and honestly even godly traits to have. But here's the problem. When we uphold this persona of always having it all together, we run the risk of hiding our emotions and fears, and we never let anyone see the real us. Men, I want to give you some advice. Your marriage will greatly improve once you become vulnerable with your wife. Tear down the walls and let your wife in. Look, Kara and I, we met in the 8th grade. And, we didn't start dating until high school or anything. But in many ways, there in 8th grade, in many ways, it was love at first sight, right? It was kind of love at first sight. And then in high school, so we started dating in high school. And then the last year of college, we got married together. From that time that I met Kara in 8th grade, all the way to the first 5, even 6 years of our marriage, in many ways, I tried to wow her with this persona that I had it all together. There wasn't anything wrong with Brian. And she's laughing, see? Right? See, I had this persona, right? I mean, I put up, and essentially what happened when I put up this persona that everything's good with me, this wall was put up between me and Kara. I just wanted her to know that she could count on me. I didn't want her to think that I was weak, that I wasn't strong. But you see, this put a wall between us. It actually put a barrier between us because she didn't really understand my true feelings, my true desires, and my true needs because I wasn't being open and honest and being vulnerable with her. And look, our first 5, 6 years of marriage, it wasn't great. I mean, we had fights, we had misunderstandings, there were many frustrations, and our marriage suffered because of it. But thankfully, by the grace of God, and because I have the support of an absolutely amazing wife, I slowly started to understand that I could be open and honest with her about my insecurities, my fears, and even my own needs in life. And men, here's the crazy part. The world will never tell you this. As I began to be more open and honest with Kara, as she began to see the real me, as I let Kara see all the faults of the man that she married, suddenly our marriage started to improve. Why? Because now I had my wife on my team. I now had my greatest supporter and my greatest encourager in life praying for my insecurities, praying for my fears, praying for my faults. She was now able to support me because she knew how I needed to be supported. And she was able to help me through the most challenging seasons of life because she knew the challenges I was faced with. I no longer felt alone. I no longer had to uphold this persona that I always have it together. I'm a man, right? I was simply me. And guess what? That's all my wife ever wanted from the beginning. She just wanted the real me. She wanted to grow old with this slightly balding, somewhat insensitive man, warts and all, because she unconditionally loves the man that God gave to her for a husband. Proverbs 26:23. Insincere talk that hides what you are really thinking is like a fine glaze on a cheap clay pot. Men, don't be like a fine glaze on a cheap clay pot. Just be you. Let your wife see you for who you are. There's no shame, men, in being vulnerable. Look, the devil's going to tell you that you are weak. You are absolutely weak as a man if you're open, honest, and vulnerable. But that's a lie. We know that Satan is the father of lies. Did you know that Jesus, he never had a problem telling people how much he loved them? Jesus never had a problem being open and honest and sharing his feelings with others. And guess what? Jesus was the strongest, most manly man to ever walk the face of this earth. Ever. Proverbs 12:22. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who tell the truth. Men, one of your wife's greatest needs is for you to be open and honest with her. Share with her your thoughts. Share with her your feelings. Share with her your dreams and fears. Let your wife in. Be open and honest with her. And men, when you are, your marriage will absolutely begin to strengthen. It absolutely will. How can I fulfill my wife's deepest needs? Men, you have to show affection, communicate often, be open and honest. And number 4, provide security and support. Now, I could be wrong, and women, please correct me if I am. You have permission this morning to correct me if I'm wrong. Most women have a deep need to know that their husband will provide safety, security, and support in their marriage. Most women aren't looking for their dream man who likes to spend his time in the basement eating Doritos and playing video games. I don't think that's the dream man, right? A wife wants to know that her husband cares about the family and that he will do anything he has to do to make her feel safe, secure, and supported. Now look, men, God actually has a lot to say about how we should care for our wife, our family, and even our relatives. Here's God's thoughts. 1 Timothy 5:8. But those who won't care for their relatives, especially those in their own household, have denied the true faith. Look at this next line. Such people are worse than unbelievers. Men, you have a biblical responsibility to care for your wife, to make her feel safe, secure, and supported. And there's many ways to do this, right? One way is to work hard, earn a living, provide financial security, support your wife, support your family. But there's many ways to do this, right? I mean, we heard a great example from Bill. One of the ways that he supported Terry was by getting up in the middle of the night when she was exhausted. She was working, and she was working with the kids, right? But he would get up. He was helping support her. Look, when your wife feels like the world is crashing in on her, be there to let her know that you've got her back. Men, let her know that you will always be there for her. Always be there for her, no matter the situation, no matter the circumstance. I mean, look, even when she's watching TV and she begins to cry as the bachelorette gives the wrong rose to the wrong guy, be there for her. Give her a box of tissues, right? Look, men, God calls us to provide safety, security, and support for our wife and our family. And when we do, we're actually going to be meeting one of her deepest needs. Show affection, communicate often, be open and honest, provide security, support. And last, number 5, be faithful to her and the family. Husbands, your wife has a deep need of knowing that you have eyes for only her. She has a deep need to know that you will be faithful to her. She has a deep need of knowing that she doesn't have to worry about you flirting or chasing after another woman. She needs to know that you will be faithful in the good times of the marriage and the bad times. Proverbs 5:15. Drink water from your own well. Share your love only with your wife. Men, we need to do whatever we need to do to build trust between us and our wives. Look, if your wife is uncomfortable with a certain coworker or uncomfortable with the way that you're interacting with another woman, make a change. Make a change. Your marriage is worth it. Don't tell your wife, well, you're just too sensitive. Well, you're just ridiculous. Men, make a change. Do whatever you need to do to build trust so that your wife's deepest need of knowing that you will be faithful to her will be met. Look, a very practical way to do this, men, a very practical way to do this in marriage is to share with your spouse any communication you have with a person of the opposite sex. For example, Kara and I, one of the things we've put into our life, and I'm not saying you have to do this, I'm just giving you some examples today. One of the things we've done in our life is that we share a Facebook account. That way, she sees any and all communication that I have with any person. In addition, I'll often blind copy my wife on an email that I might be sending to a person of the opposite sex. I want my wife to know that she has nothing to fear. Look, we don't delete text messages. We don't hide communication that we have with another person. For Kara and I, we have learned that our marriage needs to have these habits in place so that we can not only build trust, but so that trust will turn into an unshakable faithfulness in our marriage. Now, men, there's another part to this point here. So in addition to being faithful to your wife, if you have children, your wife also has a deep need of knowing that her husband will be faithful in their children's life. Look, a mom wants to know that her husband will be an integral part of raising and disciplining their children. A woman doesn't want to have to do this by herself. And frankly, men, make sure you hear this. Our world needs more Christian fathers being present in their homes. Fathers are to play a vital role in raising healthy children with good morals and good manners. Ephesians 6:4. Men, don't keep on scolding and nagging your children, making them angry and resentful. Rather, bring them up with the loving discipline the Lord Himself approves, with suggestions and godly advice. Men, your children need you. Your children need you. Invest in their lives. Be present at the football games. Be present at mealtime. Be present for homework. Be present for the discipline. Be present for the movies, the laughter, the sorrows, and the celebrations. And for all things, make sure you are present when your daughter brings home a boyfriend. Okay? I'm going to go off on a little tangent real quick. I am not looking forward to that day at all. And if I'm completely truthful with you, every night I pray the same prayer when I go to bed. I say, Heavenly Father, would you please send Jesus Christ back to this earth to rapture us before my daughter begins to date? Amen. And then I go to bed. Men, be faithful to your wife and be faithful to the responsibility of raising your children. Your wife is worth it. Your marriage is worth it. Your children are worth it. And God is worth it. Men, the world is going to tell you, the world tells me, that we have to be rough. We have to be insensitive. A man should never show affection. A man can't communicate well. A man doesn't have to be open and honest. A man does not have to be faithful. Men, you need to know that the world is wrong. The world is absolutely wrong. So how about we make a commitment to each other, men, that we're going to stop buying what the world is selling? Let's do that. Let's make a commitment to be different. I believe one of the manliest things we can do as men is have a marriage that honors and glorifies the Lord. Men, if your marriage is suffering, step up. If your marriage is suffering, step up. Take responsibility and make needed changes. First in yourself, make needed changes where you can become laser focused and where you can start meeting your wife's needs. Show her affection. Communicate often. Be open and honest with her. Provide her with security and support. And remain faithful as a husband and a father. Be the man that God created you to be. Treat your wife like Jesus treats his church. Show your wife love, mercy, grace, and unconditional love, where your marriage will absolutely stand the test of time together forever. Let's pray.